The name of my business is Jawbone if you're from Texas, and Jawbone if you're from anywhere else. And I came up with the name because of the fact that my nickname is Jenny, and everybody had something to do with Jenny's back then, bookkeeping and purses and what have you, and I just didn't want to be associated with that, so I was trying to come up with a name. And I was thinking about, you know, I just did a little bit of nature, and when I wrote the initials down for it, it came up with Jalbon without the E, and that kind of looked like a chocolate, so I decided to add the E for the etc., and so it's just a little bit of nature, etc., and that's where my name comes from. What I'm going to show right now is just a little demonstration of how we put texturing and heat to copper, because I do copper bracelets and copper earrings, and people seem to like the copper a lot, and there doesn't seem to be a great variety of it available in this town, and so I have learned to like doing a lot of this. So first we're going to put a texture into, this is probably only about 24 gauge copper. It's my guesstimation of the gauge of it. We can use different texturing hammers. I have used it by putting it under the tires on the gravel. Just anything you want to try to do to make a texture. This is noisy. Now we're going to put some fire to it. Are you ready? Kind of heat up the whole piece first, just so that it evens it out, and then you start holding in closer and closer. If you wanted a specific spot like this, then you have that, and then you can make it different colors, like right there. Here we go, because it's still nice and hot. The other side is just like this. Then you just do the same thing as we did before. Just again, warm it all the way up and then heat it. And you stop where you want it to end as far as colors, because it develops different colors as it gets hotter. This is another piece that I've done before. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to act like I'm going to put these together as if I were going to make one bracelet, because I usually double layer it to give it better stamina, or however you want to put it, where it'll stay together better and not be so lightweight. And in order to do that, yeah, that's still hot. Sometimes I have water and I go ahead and dip it in the water just to stop the process of heating, because it will develop different colors as it cools. But to put the two together, the two pieces together, we use a process called cold connections. These are wonderful little inventions of a tool that is a hole punch, but it will go through fairly thick material. We're still a little warm, but I'm going to just demonstrate one hole punch on the two of these. So you line them up the way you want them, one on top of the other, and literally just, I like to see where the hole is going, so I do it actually upside down. I don't know if I moved you. I'm sorry. You told me not to move around much. And you just push the hole in there, and I don't know if you can see that hole or not, but hopefully you can. And then you take rivets. Like this. Just do one at a time. Like that. And like that. And This is called a chasing hammer, and you just start working around like this. Until you get it tight enough. And this is what you end up with. So after you do all of those that you want to do, then you form it on a bracelet form. So you start with the bracelet form and with the larger one and bend it around, and then go to the next one and the next one until you get the shape that you want it. And I usually leave one side a little wider than the other because our wrist, when the bracelets go on the wrist, it's not equal. And even though they, in the jewelry display at the gallery, they look off-center, it's on purpose so that they'll fit on the wrist better. Sorry about this, but this is how I have to do it in order to get it to work. Try to keep my elbow down as best as possible. Actually, I put it between my legs and hold it with the legs most of the time. Because you have to have it, you pull on it to keep it straight. Otherwise it kind of buckles on. So now you have the twist. And you can twist it as much as possible. And sometimes it'll even break off, but you can determine how wide you want your twist to look in order, how many times you twist it in here. So that's how you get the twisted wire. In order to determine wire wrapping, you have to determine the length that you need to go around the cabochon. And so I use just quilter's tape because it's easy to remove and come and mark on with magic marker to show where you want your wraps to be on your piece that's going to go around this. So I already have this marked for this particular piece. And I always add anywhere from 2.5 to 3 inches for a pendant. Earrings don't need as much extra, but 3 inches is usually the best. So the total amount that I will be cutting off for this will be 10 inches. This is not the one that I'm going to be using for it, but I want to use it as a demonstration. And so you cut, see this is only like 8.25 inches, so it's really not long enough to go around here. But I'm going to use it again like it's the demonstration. So I would mark on this, and these pieces would already be twisted because I do my own twisting of the wire. It's a square wire, and I twist it to make it to have this ridge in it like it is. And then you put the wraps on it, you mark it with this, and then you bend it to go around this, starting at the bottom all the way up to the top. And to do that, I use a lot of different things. I can just use my fingers to bend the wire. And sometimes I use the ring mandrel just because it's a nice solid surface and it can get because wire has a spring to it, and it'll spring back to its natural state if you don't bend it like this. As we get further down like this. There we go. That's approximately the shape that I want, but it's not exactly the shape I want. So I go to my good old trusty tools to get the shape I want. See, we're getting closer, but I still want that perfect. Because that's the whole point of this, is to show off the stone in my books. A lot of people like to use wire wrapping for other purposes, and that's okay with them. And it's okay with me, but I prefer to show off the stone. That, to me, is the beauty that we're trying to project here, is the beauty of the stone. So we keep doing this wider and wider around to where it gets to the top, and then we have to straighten it out. I'm not going to go any further on this just because I'm using this for something else besides this particular stone. But this goes to show you how it's made as far as making a pendant. And then you'll squeeze these wires in, front and back, to hold it in so it won't come out. Sometimes I've had it so tight around here that it wouldn't come out anyway. But if I were using this for this particular stone, it would have more wires in the side of it because this is a real thick cabochon versus like this one. Like on this piece, I did a lot of wraps because I wanted, again, for the stone to show up. I used a clear piece of the glass, cleaner than this one. And you draw on the smooth side, and that's where you fuse on. Smooth side or the textured side of the glass is preferable. And then you fill in the spaces that you want with the different color frits. And this is one that I did. So you have the powder, you have 4 different sizes of frits. I also took a class by Paula Reitke in Morro Bay, California, in art glass clay. She had developed a powder that's less dense than this powder. And it comes in a dry form, and you just add distilled water to it, and then you can form it in clay, just like clay artists do, and then fire it in the kiln. And this is what I did with this. Okay. So I'm doing a wasp nest here, and I'm trying to coat with mini coats because I use a thin layering system. Some people use a thicker. Takes less coats, but I like thin because it gets down in these holes real good. And this has probably only been done a half a dozen times, maybe a dozen times already, but I will want at least 10 to 15 more coats on here before it's done, ready to fire. And you just put it in there like this, as much as possible. And once it gets there, I take the AWL, not OWL, and poke the holes back in there a little bit so it doesn't fill up. I don't want it full because I want the texture of the nest to show up, obviously. So I do it that way to get it back out of there. On this one I definitely wanted a solid back side, so I also put some on the back side as well. And it dries really fast. I have like 2 or 3 pieces I'm going at the same time. I'll do one, and then by the time I go back to this first one, it's ready to go again. So I'll do some more on the back side. And just wait for it to dry. Once it's dried and it's had enough coats on it, I put it in the kiln. Well, it's almost dry enough to do again anyway, so. I just like to use stuff from nature to make my pieces, whatever it might be. Front side, back side.